Mike Tyson's life has always unfolded like a series of violent storms, loud, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Yet the most defining chapters of his story were not written inside a boxing ring. They were shaped in quiet living rooms, hospital hallways, and the fragile spaces of fatherhood, where no referee could protect him. Long before the world saw him as a mythic champion, Tyson had always carried a longing for the kind of love he never fully received as a child. And when his daughter Exodus was born in 2005, that longing finally found a place to rest. Tyson often said that her arrival awakened something buried deep inside him, something gentle, something he hadn't known he was capable of. For a man who had spent his whole life fighting, love came to him wrapped in the softness of a small child's hands, and for a brief period, she made his world feel safe. Their home was far from perfect. Money was inconsistent, emotions unpredictable, and the shadows of Tyson's past often crept into the present. But despite all of that, every memory from those years revolved around Exodus, her laughter, her curiosity, the way she filled the house with a light no fame could ever replicate. Tyson tried to learn fatherhood the same way he had learned boxing, by throwing himself into it with all his heart. He would brush the hair out of her eyes, kiss her forehead, and hold her close as though trying to memorize every detail of her little world. And in those moments, his hardened edges softened. The world saw a fighter, she saw a father trying his best. But on May 26, 2009, time split into two, before and after. It was an ordinary morning that held no warning of the catastrophe waiting only moments away. 4-year-old Exodus became entangled in an exercise machine inside the home, a silent and devastating accident. Her 7-year-old brother Miguel was nearby, too young to understand what he was witnessing, yet forced into a moment no child should ever face. Their mother, Sol, rushed into the room, instantly realizing the gravity of what she was seeing. Her trembling hands performed CPR as she called for help, her voice cracking under the panic that only a mother in crisis can know. Paramedics arrived quickly. They did everything humanly possible, rushing Exodus to the hospital, where bright emergency lights replaced the warmth of their home. Tyson was in Las Vegas when the call reached him. He boarded the first flight to Phoenix, moving through the airport with the hollow numbness of a man whose life had just been rearranged by fate. Later, he said he didn't remember the flight at all, only the pounding dread in his chest and a single thought echoing in his mind: get there. Just get there. But when he walked into the hospital, hope collapsed under a devastating truth. There was no chaos, no frantic rush, only the stillness that comes when a tragedy has already written its final line. Exodus had passed shortly after he arrived. Tyson later said, "No pain on earth goes deeper. It changes you permanently." And for days after, the world felt unbearably silent. He didn't lash out, he didn't assign blame. He simply broke inward, grieving in a way no camera could ever capture. Sol withdrew, drowning in guilt no mother deserves to bear, and together they clung to each other not as partners, but as two devastated parents holding on to the memory of the child who had transformed their hearts. Though their romantic relationship could not survive the aftermath, the sorrow they shared became sacred, something private, untouchable, and untouched by public opinion. In interviews years later, Tyson spoke of Exodus with reverence rather than anger. He said her memory pushed him not to live harder, but better, to finally confront his past, to soften his spirit, to grow into the man he had once been too broken to imagine becoming. In the years following the tragedy, Tyson's life spiraled into a haze of grief, financial collapse, and emotional exhaustion. Bankruptcy had stripped him of fortunes, and the loss of his daughter almost stripped him of the will to continue. He moved through life like a man navigating the ruins of his own story. And then, quietly and unexpectedly, someone stepped into the emptiness. Lakika, Kiki, Spicer. Kiki didn't arrive with promises or dramatic declarations. She arrived like breath, a steady, grounding presence at a time when Tyson felt abandoned by the world. Her own past was marked by difficulty, including a turbulent upbringing and time spent in prison. But perhaps it was that very history that helped her see Tyson for who he truly was, a man trying to rebuild from broken pieces. Long before their relationship turned into love, it was built on recognition. Two individuals who had survived storms the world knew nothing about. Their connection grew in late-night conversations, in quiet mornings where Tyson struggled to find direction, in moments where Kiki simply sat beside him without asking him to be the version of himself the world demanded. When their daughter Milan was born in 2008, Tyson held her as though holding forgiveness itself. After Exodus's passing in 2009, when grief threatened to shatter every remaining part of him, Kiki didn't step away. She stepped closer. 2 weeks after the tragedy, they were married in a small Las Vegas chapel. It wasn't to celebrate. Mike Tyson stands as one of the most electrifying figures in sports history, a man whose fists rewrote boxing and whose name once thundered through arenas, shaking the world with his sheer presence, becoming the youngest heavyweight champion ever, and destroying giants with an intensity that left the world in awe. Yet behind the glory lay a childhood of poverty, violence, and abandonment in Brooklyn, where his father vanished, his mother struggled to keep her children afloat, and young Mike endured mockery, loneliness, and hardship, finding fleeting solace in pigeons he nurtured on rooftops, only to be shattered when his favorite bird was taken. Mike Tyson stands as one of the most electrifying figures in sports history, a man whose fists rewrote boxing and whose name once thundered through arenas, shaking the world with his sheer presence, becoming the youngest heavyweight champion ever and destroying giants with an intensity that left the world in awe. Yet behind the glory lay a childhood of poverty, violence, and abandonment in Brooklyn, where his father vanished, his mother struggled to keep her children afloat, and young Mike endured mockery, loneliness, and hardship, finding fleeting solace in pigeons he nurtured on rooftops, only to be shattered when his favorite bird was taken, igniting a fire fueled by fear, pain, and a vow to never feel powerless again, which propelled him into the streets and into minor crimes that eventually led him to the Tryon School for Boys, a cold institution where, for the first time, an adult noticed his raw talent in counselor Bobby Stewart, whose guidance introduced him to boxing, and later the legendary Cus D'Amato, whose belief, discipline, and mentorship transformed Mike's life, shaping not only his fighting style with the peekaboo technique, but instilling principles of purpose, emotional control, and self-belief, turning a troubled teen into Iron Mike, whose professional debut at 18 started a historic rise marked by rapid knockouts and a global fame, including the unforgettable 91-second demolition of Michael